Mm-hmm.
But now it's just like, there, get it done.
Yeah.
I'm going to use the computer today. I thought the best way would be
You can broadcast on the computer.
from my computer.
Yeah, you can share your screen.
Oh, that's a good idea.
That way the people at home will see it and then.
Yeah. I was trying to find a way to like synchronize, you know. Does everybody have their horoscope back?
No, Julio's been dropping the ball.
Oh. No.
When he doesn't leave me, so I can't say that.
Sorry. Yeah, because I was really looking to go over those today. I think I'll still just go over them.
Well, here's the thing, Hunter and Kylie didn't do the ACT. They all have the SAT score.
Oh, they do? Okay.
Yeah, so they have that
that's
one
great.
that's from a weekend ago.
Okay. I'll just do that one then.
Yeah, I'm just not going to go over the ACT because a bunch like Kyra didn't take it either. So just,
okay, that's fine. Thanks. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you. Danny and Hunter online. We are going to get started in just a couple of minutes, just waiting on a couple more people to get here. But good morning. Do you know if anybody's supposed to be absent today?
Charles isn't gonna be here.
Okay. How are you guys doing this morning? Cool. I actually have a Kahoot for you, which will be on Big Computer. Very exciting. Huh? I know. Yeah, it's not easy being Steve Jobs, but somehow I manage. Okay, really waiting on people today. Oh, thank you. Should have remembered that people need to be let into it. All these people should be in. Where did you see that? Oh, who was it?
I don't know the number.
It was me.
Oh,
And then you let me in right as I texted that.
oh, great. Okay,
Yeah.
good. Okay, so now online we have a couple more people. Hunter, Danny, Kenton, Kylie. I usually expect Kyra to be here as well. But that's
She has
okay.
school, I think.
Oh my goodness, yeah, I think she did already start school. Okay, well let's get it popping then. My people online, how are we doing?
Pretty good.
Yeah, okay.
Love the enthusiasm. We're ready. It's good. Hunter and Kylie, how are you? I didn't hear anything from you ladies.
Okay. Good, yeah.
Okay, cool. Totally. I see I'm gonna be providing a lot of the energy this morning. I'm feeling pretty good this morning. I have yet to hear how bad the damage on my car. Well, I know how bad the damage on my car is. I just need to know how much it costs now. But I woke up early and I had some Greek yogurt, so I'm feeling very powerful. My microbiome has never been better. Yeah, let's get started. As I told the people who are already here, I have a Kahoot ready for you guys, and it is 12 questions long. I took into consideration your feedback from last time, so it was much longer, but you know, it shouldn't take that long. So I wanna go ahead and get that started. I am going to share my screen, and hopefully it works on Big Computer right here so the people in person can see it, and then hopefully it works online as well. So get those little phones out. I played this with my boyfriend last night to see how well he remembered his grammar, and he remembered it really, really well. So that's why we can still be together. So that's good. I'm gonna share my screen. Everybody online, give me a quick thumbs up if you can see it. Awesome. You make sure, okay, awesome. Things working as it should. Oh, no music. Oh well. Okay, so we have a total of how many people here today? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we're waiting on one more. I'm turning the music on mine because I can. Actually, never mind, no, I'm not. Let's get it poppin'. Did it a new way this time? So the part in brackets is going to be the part that you're trying to replace. Because the bold was hard for people last time. Very good to the 4 of you. The other 2, we'll talk about it. Sure. Lead in the pack. I don't know who the cringe face is. I'm guessing it's Kenton. That seems like something he would do. Oh, it's Danny. Great. All right, next one. The true fact about me. Pretty good on that one. Leading the pack. Who will take her down, if anyone? All right. Very excited that you guys all got this one. Very good. Okay, Danny is on a streak. Can he catch up? Confusing? What's confusing about it? You have 5 seconds. Talk about that one. All right. This is true, by the way. Just kidding. I just hate iced coffee. Nobody did conforms on that one. That was trickery. Hunter's still on top. Yes, that is an apostrophe after the word eggs. Ooh, okay, we'll check that one out. One. Okay, apparently two of you didn't think very much about it, but that's okay. I hope you're right. All right, very good. The majority. Okay, Billy on a streak. This one, my boyfriend said it made him mad because he felt like it was too easy. And I was like, it's not easy for everybody. Very good. Very good. Okay. Only a few more left. Almost everybody. Just two more left. Who will clinch the lead? Yes, very good. Okay. One more, final one. Ooh, a polarizing choice. And I put this question on for a reason because I knew that it might trip some of you guys up. All right, final podium. And the third is Kylie. Congratulations, Kylie. You were both fast and accurate. I don't know who that is. Who is that one? Okay, Ketan. And Hunter on the top. No one could take down Hunter. And we had some runners up as well. Okay, great job, everybody. Thank you for doing that. Let's go ahead and do a little review. Well, first of all, do you feel like that one sucked less than the previous one?
Yes.
Okay, good. Michael, what do you think? I see you just staring into the void. Okay, good. I'm glad. I'm glad it says every question was answered correctly by most players, which is awesome. Let's go ahead and go through those questions individually. Here we go. So this one says, ever since introducing coffee to Italy, it has been a huge part of Italian culture. Okay, let's go through these answers. No change would mean ever since introducing coffee to Italy, it. So this is a modifier at the beginning, right? So it would probably refer to coffee logically, right? But coffee wouldn't introduce like itself, right? You would say ever since introducing coffee, coffee has been a huge part of Italian culture, right? But nobody guessed that one, so that's fine. For the second answer, ever since they introduced coffee to Italy, it has been a huge. This one would, I get why this one was tricky. It's not the answer because we don't know who they are. It's too non-specific. So the specific question is something we'll talk about in a couple minutes. But because we don't know who they are and it doesn't refer to it, that one is not our answer. It's the same reason for the third one, their introduction of coffee. I don't know who they're talking about. The last answers are correct answer. Ever since coffee was introduced to Italy, coffee has been a huge part of Italian culture, right? Because coffee is the antecedent for it. That one is perfect. Does anybody have any questions about this first one? Okay, great. Right. In the year 2007, I was among many which loved the Twilight series. So we don't want to do which because I'm talking about people, right? So we only do which for objects, sometimes for animals, depends on who you are. I was among many who love. We don't want to talk about that in the present tense because I do say in 2007, so that's in the past. So that leaves us with our third and fourth answer. Remember that who is a subject pronoun, right? So because it's saying among many who loved, the who is doing the loving, right? It's a subject doing the verb loved. That's why that is going to be our correct answer. Whom loved, remember that who is an object pronoun. So whom does not do an action. We'll also probably remember that whom almost always comes with a pronoun like to, right? So I might say like, to whom did you speak to, right? To is going to go right next to that whom, and we don't have any pronoun near it here. So that's how we know that the third answer is the right answer. Any questions about this one? Okay, great. Let's go on. Everybody got this one. What kind of question was this? Yeah, it was a redundancy question, right? So we already say proper and all these other ones are synonyms. So very good job on that one, guys. Okay, Michael, I heard you say this one was confusing. Why? So it wasn't confusing, you just weren't sure. Okay. I feel like this is something I've emphasized a lot, but that's okay. That's just something I feel it's not necessarily true. So this one says on the SAT, ACT English, the most specific answers will almost always be correct. Note that I didn't say the most specific answers will always be correct, right? Because there are intervening circumstances, like maybe even though an answer is specific, it's also redundant, so that makes it not the answer. But as a general rule, more specific, almost always correct. We saw that in our first question, right? It had pronouns like they that weren't specified, so that's what doesn't make them the correct answer. So this is something you can generally bet on, something to keep in mind when you're doing the test. Any questions about this one? Okay, cool. All right, a recent study conducted by UCLA graduate students confirmed that iced coffee is actually gross. Almost all of us got this one, but let's talk about this one anyway. What I did with this one, right, is I tried to confuse you by putting graduate students right next to the verb. This is something that the test does constantly, which we've talked about before. So it wants you to think that the subject is plural, right? So I see that one person unfortunately did fall for that, right? They did confirm, which would be the plural verb for this sentence. But what's actually the subject? Anybody?
The study.
Subject is the study, which is singular. So we would say a recent study confirms that iced coffee is actually gross, okay? Subject verb agreement. Any questions about this one? Okay, perfect. Moving on. Okay, some people had a tough time with this one. Though he usually hates eggs, he decided to take a chance on the mushroom omelet. So fortunately, all of you knew not to put an apostrophe after eggs. That would be crazy, right? Because we only do that when it's a possessive. However, some of us were having a hard time on whether or not to put that comma after eggs. So whenever we have a word like though or although, especially, those are probably going to be the two top ones at the beginning of the sentence, that means it's the beginning of an introductory phrase. And as we talked about our uses for commas, we always have a comma after an introductory phrase. So we could also talk about it in these terms. Though he usually hates eggs is a dependent clause, and then he decided to take a chance on the mushroom omelet is an independent clause. So when the dependent clause is in the first part of the sentence, we need a comma after it to separate it from the independent clause. I know I may have just said that fast, but does anybody have any questions about that, or is that unclear to anybody? Cool. Just want to make sure everybody gets that because that is something that's tested pretty frequently on the test. And more of you got it wrong, I guess, than I expected, but that's okay. We all get it now. Okay. This was one that most of you got, a couple of you didn't, that's okay. I did mean this one to be a little bit of a challenge question, because it, is taken outside of context, but let's talk about it. Breathing in the mask. It gets easier, but it never gets perfect. The verbs begun and gone don't need helping verbs like had or have next to them. So for this one, I feel like in order to get it correct, you kind of have to imagine, well, I mean, like, I know this right off the bat just because I'm English, I love my English. But you probably would have imagined these like in the context of a sentence, right? So when we think about the word begun, right, I would think like, oh, they had begun the job or something, but we would never say they begun the job, okay? We could say they began because that's the simple past, but begun can only be used with a helping verb because it's part of the perfect tenses, past perfect and present perfect. It's the same thing with gone, right? I might say we have gone on vacation every year, but we wouldn't say we gone on vacation. Maybe if you were speaking in non-standard English, which is fine with speaking, right? It's fine in the vernacular. But in written English, according to these tests, which is very prescriptive, it's very strict in its rules, we would always need had or have, okay? So this is something that the test will test, right? It'll try to have you just use one of those alone, but do not fall for it. Any questions about that question? I understand it may have been a little bit of a challenge because it lacked context, but okay, cool. Let's keep on going. Oh, I lament the person who missed this. And again, I don't know who missed any of these. I'm not scrolling down. I'm not looking at the players. This is anonymous. To avoid plagiarism, they always cited their sources. So in the context of the sentence, we want cited with a C. Let's go through our answers. No change, S-I-T-E-D is not a word. It's never a word. It's like not even a homophone. It's just not it. Cited, S-I-G-H-T-E-D is a word, right? Like they cited the Statue of Liberty from the coast or something. It's non-traditional, but it is a word. But we don't talk about that in regards to our sources, right? That would mean like I saw my sources, which doesn't make a lot of sense. Cited, S-I-D-E-D, I just threw in there just to be a little jerk, but that's not it. And then we have our correct answer, cited with a C, and that specifically means to list your sources, right? To refer to them. Any questions about this one? Okay. Number 9. She likes samurai movies, semicolon, but he likes rom-coms. I was singing this one in my head to the tune of that Taylor Swift song, like, she wears short skirts. Huh? You did? That's funny. Yeah, I don't know. It's fun. We love folklore. We stan. Okay, so what we have here is the improper use of a semicolon. We never want a conjunction after our semicolon. And but is a conjunction. So this is something we might think is okay in spoken English, right? To start a sentence with but, that's fine. But formally, you do not want to start a sentence with a word like but or and. So that's why we don't have our semicolon there, because technically the part after the semicolon is not an independent clause. All of you knew this was not the place for a colon, a regular colon, right? Just not it. Comma because, right, would like, oh, okay, that could work because it's a comma fanboys, but logically it doesn't make sense unless she was just like being willfully like trying to make him mad, like, oh, she insists on liking samurai movies because he doesn't. But that isn't really implied by the sentence. So our comma but is going to be our correct answer, is both grammatically sound and logical. Any questions about this one? Okay, great. Our next one is, he has less photos of Harry Styles saved on his phone than I do. I know you guys thought I would make a Kahoot without any of my celebrity crushes, but guess what? You're wrong. So photos Is that a countable or a non-countable noun? Anybody just shout it out. It's
Countable.
countable. Yes, awesome. You can have more than one. So when we can have more than one thing, we use fewer. If it's non-countable, like he has less courage than another person, right? You can't count courages, so that would be less. So yeah, fewer is our correct answer. Lesser doesn't make sense in this context. And then because it's a comparison, we would not have few. We know it's a comparison because we have the word than, right? Okay, any questions about this one? All right, keep it going. My computer's really thinking about this one. All right. Any minute. Oh my gosh. We were so close. Okay. Okay, here we are. Spiteful, Robert refused to adhere to the safety guidelines. You guys all got this one. Raise your hand if you did not know what emulate means. Okay, we were all good on that one then, right? Emulate, not a good fit here. I did bond with and stick on because in other contexts, right, those might be synonyms for adhere to, because we have the word adhere, just like the word adhesive, meaning to go together with. But it doesn't make sense you would bond with or stick on guidelines. So that's why adhere to is our answer. Any questions about that one? Okay, great. In our very last one, she says she likes to take on wilderness challenges that, semicolon, would probably kill a normal person. Okay, so we know it's not a semicolon because neither of these are independent clauses, right? When you end the sentence with that, that's not going to be an independent clause. And then obviously the second one isn't either. This one is polarizing. I did actually expect it to be. That is because you may have the natural instinct to put a comma before any kind of quote, but we only put a comma before a quote if we have a speaking verb. So if I said, she says they would probably kill a normal person, we would need a comma after says because it's a speaking verb. But this quote is integrated into the sentence. It's part of that modifying clause, right? So we have the word challenges, and then what's describing challenges is that would probably kill a normal person. And just like I wouldn't say, I have a dress that comma is blue, I would never say that, right? So even though we have quotes here, because it's integrated into the sentence as part of the modifying clause, no comma. So as a rule, if you have that and then a quote, no comma, it's not needed. And this, I didn't pull this actual sentence from a test, but I was modeling it on a question I saw in a test. So they are known to test this. So it's not just me being particular. Any questions about this one? Okay, great. I'm actually pretty proud of that Kahoot. I got that one done a lot faster than the last one because I wasn't obsessed with choosing pictures. I was like, I don't know how much pictures add to the experience. But yeah, I hope. Oh yeah, I didn't get feedback. Oh well. Sad. Yeah, I am done screen sharing. I feel like I was able to cover kind of a multitude of things in that one. And I'll have another one ready for you next time on Friday, our final day of group class, which is crazy. I don't know if I'm ready for it. I wasn't planning on being done with this class so soon. But I am looking forward to like waking up whenever I want. So it's a bonus. Okay, so I'm kind of trying to decide what I want to go over next. Not all of you took the ACT, as some of you mentioned, and as Joey reminded me this morning. So I am going to opt not to use our instructional time to go over the ACT. However, everyone should have their SAT results. Michael and Billy, I know you do. Kylie, did you get yours sent to you?
No, I didn't take it.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry about that. Okay.
I don't think I got
Thanks.
mine either. But I
Danny, you
took it.
didn't get yours? Let me
I'm
write
gonna look
some of
right
these
now.
down. Okay. Did you get your scores for the SAT?
No, I don't see them here.
It doesn't. Hunter, did you get yours?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Kenton, did you ever get yours for the SAT? Awesome. Okay. So Danny, let me just double check with Joey real fast on that. And you did check your email?
Yeah.
Actually, hang on. I can just check if it's in the Dropbox right here. Give me just a moment. So if you do have those results, have them on hand. I guess I was conflicted between whether or not I was going to go over the test first or go over the homework. I feel like the homework is going to be quicker, so we can knock out the homework and then take our 5-minute break and then go over the test. Is everybody okay with that? Okay, cool. Sing a couple nods. Danny, let me here. Okay, so Danny, we do have your score report. I can just send it over to you right now. Is there an email I can send it to?
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So guys, give me like 45 seconds to send over those results. Sent to you, Danny. We had it on hand. Hold it. This. I'm very into theater, as I think I've shared with you guys before. I am a huge nerd and a loser, and I love musical theater. And I finished watching Hamilton for the first time on Disney Plus. Has anybody watched that yet? It's really good. You did watch it? Good. Yeah, obviously for people who are interested in theater, the buzz around Hamilton was just insane for like years after it came out in 2016. It did come out before the 2016 election, which is an interesting contextual detail, I think, along with the musical. But yeah, I mean, tickets are really hard to get and very expensive. So yeah, I would have loved to see it, you know, on stage in person. So I'm glad that I had the opportunity to now. I enjoyed it. I thought it was interesting. I did know, I knew a fair amount about that particular historical era, but I still managed to learn a lot. Definitely read Eliza Hamilton's whole Wikipedia page last night after I finished it. Great read. Crazy life. She lived until she was 97, which is insane during that historical period. She died in the 1850s. But yeah, if you haven't seen Hamilton, it's fun. I think it's well performed. Lin-Manuel Miranda can't sing, but he can rap. He's the guy who plays Hamilton. But he also wrote the whole musical, so he can play whoever he wants. But yeah, so if you guys haven't seen it, I recommend it. Even if people who like don't usually like musical theater, I think have enjoyed the show. And yeah, I cried a lot in the second half. And what about it? Yeah, good times. I didn't even have a glass of wine. It was just sad, sober crying. Miserable, pathetic. Anyway, no, crying is great. We must do it often, especially during these trying times. Okay, now that we have the score report stuff sorted out, Danny, did you get that email?
Yeah, I did.
Great. Okay, that's all good. We're going to put that to the side. We are going to look at, speaking of American history, what to the slave is the 4th of July? And those questions were your homework, if you guys remember that correctly. Okay, so I want to see how we did with this one. Taking out my papers, taking out Charles, because he's not here again. That's okay. Does anybody know where Charles is? Did we ever figure that out? Okay, he may have just ditched. Well, I'm sorry, Charles. We salute you. Okay, great. Let's take a look at number 29 first. We already had a good discussion with this one. So let's just get right into the questions. The primary purpose of the passage is to do what? I do know the questions on this one can be a challenge, but we'll make it through. Michael, what did you get for number 29? Okay. Michael got C, explain the ethical values underlying a national holiday. That's unfortunately not the right answer. I'm sorry about that. But why did you put that answer? I'm interested to know. Thanks. Michael says, well, I chose that answer because I thought it was the right answer, which is as good of a reason as any. So remember, primary purpose, we've gone over this time and time again. It needs to be something that describes the whole passage, right? So let's go through each of these answers. A, propose an approach to achieving political change. He is not making a proposal. He's not saying like slavery is bad and this is what we should do, right? It's more of just like you guys are being hypocritical. The 4th of July is, you know, weird for that reason. So that one's not it. B, question the wisdom of celebrating the ideals of an earlier generation. He really doesn't talk at all about like, oh, you know, because our ancestors celebrated this just doesn't mean that we should carry on that tradition. That's not it. C, explain the ethical values underlying a national holiday. So that one was tempting, right? We see the national holiday part, and he's certainly talking about the 4th. But we have to ask ourselves, does he explain the whole, or does he spend the whole passage explaining American ideals of liberty? Not in my opinion. Michael, can you get on board with that? Okay. Because that would mean for the whole passage, he would be like, this is why we celebrate the 4th of July, right? But that's not really what we're seeing here. So D, contrast revered political principles with social reality. Hopefully most of us know the word revere. That means to have great respect for something, right? To honor it. So to contrast political principles that people cherish, right? That people hold in high regard. And those principles would be like all men are created equal and all the other, you know, liberty stuff in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. With the social reality, and what, can someone tell me what the social reality is that they're referring to here?
Black people don't get the same rights.
Yes, the social reality is that Black people do not get the same rights, right? Douglas is saying, okay, how are we gonna say we love America because everyone is free when like a huge proportion of the nation is not free at all? Yeah. So D is our answer because he's bringing up these principles, right? He's saying like, this is what the US is supposed to stand for, but that's in huge contrast with what's actually going on. So that's why D is our answer. Do we have any questions about that one? Okay, great. Let's move on to number 30. The questions in the first paragraph primarily serve to, this one trips students up as well. We were discussing that these are all kind of rhetorical questions, ones that he's using for effect. He doesn't expect anybody to answer them. Danny, what did you get for number 30? Here.
Wait, are we going over the SAT or are we doing the reading packet?
No, bro, I've been talking about Frederick Douglass this whole time, not to shade you in public, but yeah, we're going over the homework.
I wasn't
So,
here on Monday. If we did
oh my
that, you said that on
goodness.
Monday.
Danny, I'm so sorry I shaded you in public because he wasn't here on Monday and he doesn't know what's going on. I'm trash. I'm very sorry about that. Like I said, a lot going on in this little brain of mine. Feels like fried eggs at some points. I'm trying to design my whole online course for the fall and it's like making me short circuit. Danny, I'm really sorry. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, we're taking a look at the Frederick Douglass passage. That's the one that begins, if you're in the reading packet, it begins after page 23 in the packet. It's what to the slave is the 4th of July. So if you want to follow along with us, you can on that one, or at least record those answers. And the answer to 29 for that one was D. So for 30, I'm going to pick somebody else. Kylie, what did you get for number 30?
I put B.
Reveal a motivation that Douglass will analyze. Where did you put that one, Kylie?
Because let me look at because he was like asking in the beginning, he was like asking questions like, why am I here? But like he obviously kind of knew that he was there to like give a speech about the 4th of July and like the rights and
So thank you. B is unfortunately not our answer. I'm sorry. Most students will do B, to your credit, Kylie. And I think your justification for it totally makes sense. For those in person, she was just saying, you know, he's thinking about, you know, he's asking rhetorical questions like, why did you guys call me here? But like he knows, right? Our answer here is actually C, raise a possibility that Douglass will discredit. So the possibility here would be like, so like, did you guys really kind of expect me to talk highly of the US on this day? Like, is that possible? And then later he says like, no, that couldn't have been possible because I couldn't do that as a former slave. So that's him discrediting that possibility. So 30 was definitely a stepper, but does anybody have any questions about that one? Okay, cool. Thank you, Kylie. 31, in the context of the passage as a whole, the phrases pardon me and allow me to ask, which are both in line 1, serve primarily to... Hunter, what did you get for 31?
I said A.
Good, it's A, project an appearance of courtesy, right? So if you just look kind of at those phrases, pardon me, allow me to ask, those are polite, right? Then we look in the context of the passage, and it does seem like he kind of starts off the speech being like, kind of giving that appearance of being very courteous and of being very formal. And then he really kind of gets into it later in the passage and his tone changes. B, demonstrate private respect and public mistrust. That one, I don't know what's going on with that answer because, you know, private versus public would mean private, like, you know, personal between people, and then public meaning like with the masses. And there's really just not kind of a private public binary going on here. C, demand close attention from the audience. I would say if those phrases were like, listen to what I have to say, then that would make sense. But you really don't say like, pardon me to get someone's attention. It's more of a courtesy thing. D, encourage curiosity and compassion. That's really not it either. Any questions about 31? Okay, great. Number 32 says, Douglass makes which point about the 4th of July holiday? Kenton, what did you get for 32?
I put B.
It should not be celebrated while slavery continues to exist. Very tempting, very tempting. I do feel like, so this one says Douglass makes which point, right? So when we say something like the author says or the author makes a point, it needs to be in the passage. So I feel like I feel like kind of making the argument that Douglas is saying that it should not be celebrated is not something that he's doing explicitly here. That's something that you might assume from the conclusions that he's making, but it just doesn't quite fit in. What he is actually saying is C, right? It impresses upon him the disparities between the lives of different groups within the US. He explicitly says at certain points in the passage that the 4th of July points out that life is not the same for white and Black people. So I'll help you out with this one on 33 too. The answer to 33 is B in lines 27 through 30. If we go over to those, it says, your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. The blessings in which you this day rejoice are not enjoyed in common. So that's him explicitly referring to that kind of distance in rights and respect between Black and white people that the 4th of July points out. So the answer to 32 is C, like Cat, and 33 is B, like Joe Biden, who has chosen his running mate. It's the talk of the town. Miss Kamala, I don't know. It's like I'm a little bit conflicted for different reasons, but we don't need to go into that. It's just, you know, it's exciting that he announced a VP, so that's good. That's news. Okay. Any questions about 32 and 33? All right. Number 34. Douglas indicates that expecting him to celebrate the 4th of July is Kyra's not here. Charles is also not here. So I'm starting it over. Billy, what did you get for number 34? C, very good. Insulting to both him and the values being celebrated, right? He's saying you're insulting me by expecting me to do this, and you're also insulting the ideals of liberty. I've been tempted to choose A, ironic given his hostility to the ideals of the holiday honors, but the ideals of the holiday honors are like liberty and freedom, right? And he's definitely not hostile to those ideas. He loves those ideas. He just actually wants those for all American people. 35, which choice provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question? That one is going to be B, 36 through 39. That says, to drag a man in fetters into the grand, and what are fetters? Can anybody tell me? Very antiquated term. Okay, I assume people would know this, but again, I read a bunch of weird stuff, so I don't know. I read a lot of historical stuff. So fetters means chains. So to drag a man in chains into the grand illuminated temple of liberty and call upon him to join you in joyous anthems, songs, were inhuman mockery and sacrilegious irony. Okay, so it would be mockery to that person, right? Sacrilegious irony to the sacred ideals of liberty. So that's what he's saying there, and it's a great support to number 34, because that's literally just what he's saying, right? Like, to expect someone who has been enslaved to really celebrate the 4th is insulting, both personally and according to the ideals of the nation. Any questions about 34 and 35? Okay, number 36, a significant
35 again?
Oh yeah, 35 is B, like Batman. 36, a significant contrast that Douglas draws between himself and the audience is that he, Kylie, what did you get for number 36?
I put A.
A is that he refuses to rejoice in the country's freedoms while those freedoms are denied to slaves. He's saying like, all right, you guys seem cool with celebrating the 4th, but I'm not going to be. B is definitely not it. Thinks the holiday should memorialize the nation's founders. That's just not going on in this passage. Is that he questions the value of the US's founding principles. Again, remember, by founding principles, they're referring to, you know, individual rights. And he's not questioning the value of individual rights. He's thinking they're being a little hypocritical, but he thinks that, you know, the ideals America was built on are great, as long as they actually listen to them. And then D says, Douglas would be different from his audience in that he believes that slavery is a moral issue, not merely a political one. Remember that his audience, as we see in the blurb, which is so important to read, is already an anti-slavery group. So they're probably pretty firm in their belief that slavery is bad for both a moral and a political standpoint. So our answer there is A. Any questions about 36? Okay, number 37, in saying I am not that man, Douglas suggests that he, this one is a toughie, you don't get it, it's okay, but I hope to explain it. Kenton, what did you get for number 37?
A.
Hey, very good. Wait,
Yeah.
what?
A.
Okay,
I was reading wrong.
okay, that's okay. It is A. He suggests that he could not resist a joyful feeling of patriotism if he actually enjoyed equality with his audience. Very good. B suggests that he could not explain the fourth to those who remain enslaved. That's just not something going on in the passage. It's not like, oh, people who are enslaved wouldn't be able to understand, right? Is that he is not motivated by self-interest when addressing the audience. He never refers to him being motivated by self-interest really anywhere, and suggests that he is professing beliefs on this occasion that he has suppressed in the past. That means that he would be like, okay, I wasn't going to say this before, but I'm going to say it now, which is also something that he's not doing. Any questions about 37? Okay. 38, as used on line 24, state most nearly means. That's our vocab and context. Hunter, what did you get for number 38?
C.
C, condition. Very good. If we go back to line 24, it says, but such is not the state of the case, right? The condition of the case. Those others don't make sense. Can anybody tell me what an imperative means? Yeah. Close. Imperative is a noun. So it means an imperative is like something you must do. So we'll usually hear it in the context of like, oh, this or that is a moral imperative. That means like, if you want to be moral, then you should do it. All right. So I want to remind you guys that like questions like 29 and 34, those are ones where you have to really look at the language, right? And really ask yourself, like for example, for 29D, you see how I kind of took that apart and I was like, okay, revered political principles. What would those principles be? Social reality, what would that reality be? And being specific about, okay, this is what that would apply to in the passage, and that's why that's the answer, right? Also paying really attention to the language, right? Like in C, explain ethical values underlining a national holiday. He is not explaining liberty to those people. They don't need an explanation of that at this particular juncture. Yeah. Any questions about the passage as a whole or its questions? You can always circle back if you guys had any words or any sentences that you didn't understand. I'm happy to look into those more as well. Okay, everybody's like, give me my break or I'll die. Okay, so go ahead and take our 5-minute break until 10, or not 10, until 11:02 or 11:03. See you guys in a few. Granola bar, anyone? Okay. How you doing, Michael? Suffering? So stoked. I always used to look forward to registration day because you go in person and you can see everybody and it's fun. So I feel like virtual registration must be a drag. Huh? Oh, really? It was just like distanced? Interesting. You guys did pictures and everything like usual? Hmm. Was it kind of fun to like be in the presence of others? I know, yeah. It's like, oh, cool, I'm on campus. I'm not gonna be on campus. Yeah. Where do you go, Billy? No way. How haven't we talked about this? I went to Tesoro. I did. Yeah, and all my siblings as well. My little brother, he just graduated. He just had his drive-through graduation class of 2020. So yeah, that yeah. My little brother played basketball at Tesoro for a few years, chose not to his senior year because he said he hated the coach. So but that's personal. Yeah, yeah, I'm sorry this is happening to you guys in high school, but you're both incoming juniors, right? Yeah. So hopefully you'll have a nice senior year and it won't be, totally messed. Okay, calling back the troops. Come on back in to the room. Um, okay, so we are going over SAT 9. Get out that test booklet. Billy and Michael, do you have your test booklets? I'm sorry? Okay, let me give one to you, just don't write in it. That's okay, thank you. So if you need to take notes, just do it on a separate page. Where are our 9s? Am I just missing it? The heck? Are they in with the 10s? Is that what's happening? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, just one. Oh, thanks. Okay, here's one for you. Everybody online, is there anyone who does not have a test booklet? Okay, good. We all have them. So Kylie, you said you did not take the test. I'm sorry. Hopefully we can still go over some things that you can learn from. Okay. So we're gonna start out on the reading, right? The very first one. First passage is a lit passage. Surprise! Just kidding. It's always a lit passage. This is from The Bonesetter's Daughter. You may recognize Amy Tan as the author of what classic book many of us had to read in school?
Joy Luck Club.
The Joy Luck Club. Raise your hand if you had to read that. Wow, really? I expected it to be more of you guys. That was like super standard when I was in school. Good book. I didn't appreciate it, enough at the time. I feel like there's still a huge disconnect between like what adults think high schoolers are interested in and what they require them to read. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and do this kind of like we did last time. Questions 1 through 10. Let me know if you want to go over any of these questions. If you missed any of these and you're not sure why, or if you just want to talk about it.
I have a general question.
Yeah, Kenton.
So I was looking over my test yesterday, and I noticed a majority of the questions that I missed were like, which choice best summarizes the passage, or which, like the summary questions.
Okay.
Did you have any tips on those to get them correct? Because I often miss those.
Okay. Kenton says he often misses the summary questions or the primary purpose of this passage questions. Does anybody else have that problem? Okay, a couple others. I'm just gonna say what I usually say for this one, which is hopefully helpful. Go through every answer and say, does this apply to the whole passage? Because what they're likely to do is they're likely to have a couple answers that happen in the passage, right? but that's only part of it. That's only one element. It's not the whole passage. So let's go over number 1, for example. Which choice best summarizes the passage? The answer for this one is D. A character's visit to her family's ink shop deepens her appreciation of her family's work. So kind of the overarching theme here, right, is that, like, you even see in the very last line, right? I was very proud to hear father speak of our family's ink this way. One theme running throughout is the quality of their products, right? And she's feeling a pride in this. Let's go over the other answers. A character's arrival at her family's ink shop sparks fond memories of her favorite aunt. Where does she talk about her aunt here? Well, yeah, she talks about precious auntie. Yeah, and then it says, right, I was remembering how she taught me that everything, even good ink. So really that paragraph is about the memories of her aunt, but that's just one paragraph. So that's not a whole summary. B, a character's surprise visit leads to a happy reunion at her family's ink shop. I would not consider the stress in this, or the emphasis in this passage, to be that they're happy that they're reunited. It talks a lot more about ink here than it talks about, like, I was really happy to see everybody. And then C, a character comes to understand her father's ambitions. I'm not really even sure how much they talk about her father's ambitions here. It's clear that, like, he's enthusiastic about having, you know, about quality, but it's not like, oh, I'm going to spend the whole passage talking about how he wants to be, like, the best calligrapher in the world. So that leaves us with D. She's visiting the ink shop, and it deepens her appreciation of her family's work. So kind of, I was trying to model kind of how to go through that, right? Like, for example, you know, I looked at the ant question. I was like, okay, where do they talk about the ant? Is it only in one spot? Is it limited? Because if so, that's not going to be the answer. So only the answer that would apply to several moments in the passage, right? Several significant moments in one overarching theme. Kenton, does that help at all? Okay, cool. Thumbs up from Kenton. Does anybody have any questions about number 1? Okay, great. Thank you for the more general question, Kenton. I'm always down for the more general questions or the more specific ones. Just let me know. But any questions just kind of concerning this first passage? Okay, seems like nobody does. So I hope you guys all did well on that one. Our next one is how the web affects memory. And this is social science, right? This next one would be history or social science, but it's not history, so it's social science. So these are questions 11 through 20. Did anybody have any questions they wanted to go over from this one?
$14.
14. Okay, let's take a look at 14. Based on the info of the passage, which of the following would be considered a transactive memory source? So first, I don't expect anybody knows what transactive memory source, just going into this test, is. So where in the passage does it tell us what that is? Can anybody tell me? Point out those lines.
Line 17.
Yeah, I would agree. So it says, Wegner believes the new findings show that the internet has become part of a transactive memory source, a method by which our brains compartmentalize information. That definition might not make a lot of sense, but I think the example that comes next really does. Transactive memory exists in many forms, as when a husband relies on his wife to remember a relative's birthday. So that would be like, okay, the husband knows that the wife remembers. The wife stores the information in her mind. So he's like, I can just go to her and ask when that birthday is. So we're looking at 14. We're trying to find an example that is basically an analogy for that. So our answer to 14 is B, a written list of a user's passwords for different websites. I'm sure we can all identify with this. I don't have a written list, I have a typed list. where I keep, you know, the mother of all my passwords, which I hope, you know, nobody finds. But yeah, so that would be similarly in that the wife stores that information, the husband knows that he can go to her. If I have a list of my passwords, I don't have to keep it active in my brain. I can just be like, oh, I'll go to my list of passwords. I know where to find that information. So a lot of people do see a library database that helps users locate specific books. That would mean like, you know, basically like Google, right? You would search something and it tells you where to find certain things. But that, like, that's specific on the item. And I'm trying to think of like a better way to describe that. But I'm not like, oh, I know the database knows about this particular book I have in my mind, so I'll just go to the database. It's that you know that the database can help you locate whatever you're looking for, but not specific information. Does that make sense? Okay, does anybody have any questions about 14? Kenton, does that clear things up? Okay, great. Any other questions about 11 through 20? Okay, we will go ahead and move on. Our next one is paleo fantasy. What evolution really tells us about sex, diet, and how we live. This one's a fun one. It's all about guppies. Guppies have a cute little name and they're cute little fish. So does anybody have any questions about this passage and questions 21 through 31? Yeah. Number
31.
24. Oh, I'm sorry, Danny. Michael said number 24, so we're just going to do that one first. We can do yours next. Okay. Number 24 says in lines 43 through 44, Resnick uses the phrase giant test tubes to suggest that certain streams can. Okay, so first of all, Michael, what do we use test tubes for? Yeah, maybe for like separating solutions in an experiment, right? For having like a controlled environment in which to do stuff. So our answer to 24 is A, provide suitable experimental conditions. So even though those streams aren't like little pools that are sterile and in a lab, they're serving the same purpose. So they can look in those streams and use those as experimental grounds. What did you put for that one originally? I'm just curious. See, expedite the rate. Yeah, so what does expedite mean? Yeah, but it's not the streams necessarily that are like speeding up the evolution. Does that make sense for 24? Okay, great. All right, Danny said number 31. And that one says the data presented in figures 1 and 2 best support the conclusion that compared with guppies from high predation environments, guppies from low predation environments were more likely to. Okay, so if we're looking back at our figures, let's talk about these. In figure 1, it's looking at the relationship between, can anybody tell me what's on the x-axis? What information are we getting there? Yeah. Yeah, so the x-axis tells us the location of the guppies. They're either on the north or the south slope, and and then their environment is either high or low predation. What's on our y-axis? Yeah, mean number of offspring. So some of the trends we're seeing here are that the first and third bars, right? South slope high predation, north slope high predation, have many more offspring on average, where the other ones have less. Then let's look at figure 2. Our x-axis again has the location. Can anybody tell me what's on our y-axis? Mean embryo mass. What does that mean? That seems like fancy language. Yeah, it's the mass of the babies. So the first figure tells us how many babies are there, and the second figure tells us how fat are the babies. So we see here that the second and fourth bars mean that guppies at that location have fatter babies, bigger babies. Does anybody have questions just about those interpretations of those figures? Raise your hand if you're able to kind of get that the first time. Nobody? No, I meant like, raise your hand if you're able to interpret those figures the first time, like you got it. Okay. Okay, most people, cool. Some people were like, oh, now I realize what you're asking, I'm gonna raise my hand. Okay, so if we return to 31, it says compared with guppies from high predation environments, guppies from low predation environments were more likely to, okay, so let's just look at figure 1 in the low predation bar. Danny, can you tell me, did low predation guppies have more or less offspring? Danny, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. Do the low predation environments have more or less offspring according to figure 1?
They had less, right?
Okay, yeah, they have less offspring. So we can cross out D. C has a higher rate of survival. The figures don't even talk about rate of survival. So that leaves us with A and B. And then honestly, right away, we see A reach full maturity sooner. The figures also don't talk about maturity age. So that leaves us with B. They're part of a smaller litter. So a litter, of course, means group of babies. And then have a greater mean embryo mass. So they have fewer, fatter babies. Any questions about 31? Danny, does that clear things up for you?
Yeah.
Okay, good. One of my earbuds is dead, so everybody's really quiet. Okay, any other questions with this passage? All right, let's move on. Our next one is a speech delivered in 1838 by Sarah T. Smith at the Second Anti-Slavery Convention of American Women. And that's questions 32 through 42. Is there anything I can discuss with you guys from this one?
Can we go over 38?
Yeah, Hunter would like to go over 38. According to Smith, the US Constitution requires which action on the part of northern free states if slaves were to revolt? So in other words, right, it's saying, according to Smith, what does the US Constitution say northern states have to do in the case of a slave revolt? So let's look back to where she talks about that. Go ahead back through this passage and see if anyone can tell me where she refers to some kind of slave revolt, right? Or even where she talks about the Constitution. Anybody, tell me where she talks about the Constitution.
In line 34.
Great, thank you. And line 34. So let's look at that couple of sentences. By the Constitution of the US, the whole physical power of the North is pledged for the suppression of domestic insurrections. Can somebody tell me, what does domestic insurrection mean? What either of those words mean? Yeah, it's literally fighting on the inside, right? An insurrection means a rebellion, and domestic means within the house or within the country. So it's saying the whole physical power of the North is pledged for the suppression of rebellions within the country. And should the slaves, maddened by oppression, endeavor to shake off the yoke of the TaskRabbit of the taskmaster, the men of the North are bound to make common cause with the tyrant and put down at the point of the bayonet every effort on the part of the slave for the attainment of his freedom. Can somebody tell me what she's saying here in other words? just kind of in your own language. Doesn't have to be super detailed. So if the slaves try to rebel for their own freedom, what is the North obligated to do? Yeah, so Michael said they would have to capture them, but she says specifically here, right, that they would have to like quash the rebellion, right? Says they would have to put down at the point of the bayonet every effort on the part of the slave to attain his freedom. So they would have to violently suppress the rebellion, according to the Constitution. So if we're going back to 38, whatever answer would be okay if which one tells us that the northern states would have to fight the slave rebellion, it would be C. The northern states would have to help the slave states fight the slaves rebellion. When she says that they have to join the tyrants, she says tyrants a lot in the passage, and she's referring to people who are pro-slavery. Hunter, does that clear that up for you?
Yeah, I was confused at first because I thought she was saying like, oh, like the North will fight like with the slaves.
Okay, yeah. I think she's trying to make the point that like the North, like most Northerners are against slavery, but the Constitution, according to the law, would require them to quash a rebellion. And she's like, that makes me uncomfortable. That sucks.
Oh, I see. Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, of course. Any other questions for questions 32 to 42? Okay, going on to our final passage. This is about dirt, bacteria, and antibiotics. Did we have any questions about this passage and its attendant questions 43 through 52? Well, you guys will notice number 43, it says the first passage or the first paragraph of passage 1 primarily serves 2. We see the alternate to the primary purpose or the summary question, which is what's going on in the specific part of the passage, right? So that's the opposite of the summary ones, that they're not asking for something general, they're asking for something really specific to one paragraph. So on the flip side, I would tell you with these, be careful of answers that are too general, right? Now you want the answer that's just going to apply to that paragraph. So yeah, always be careful to read the question and see what it's looking for. And then you can be either more general or more specific. Really, nobody had questions about any of these last ones?
I just ran out of time.
Okay. Kenton
That's
says
going
he
too
just ran
slow.
out of time. Raise your hand if you didn't really get to this one. You got all of them wrong. Okay. Well, tell me somebody, did anybody choose to kind of do the strategy which we've been talking about, where like you do the ones that are easier for you and then you leave the harder ones for last? Okay. Because yeah, like for example, I've heard a lot of you say that like you have some trouble with the history of the social science ones. Then you could have just flipped right to this one and been like, this is science. This is better for me. Done this one and then gone back to another one. Okay. So yeah, Michael's saying it's kind of a double whammy because it's science and it's a comparison passage. I really wouldn't let the comparison passages turn you off, guys, because like sometimes they're not that bad. I wouldn't really see a comparison passage and be like, I'm gonna suck at this one, right? It just depends on what the content is. I actually think as far as comparison passages go, this one's actually pretty easy. So I would advise you guys, any of you guys who either just straight up didn't get to this one or who like did some of them but really didn't have enough time, I would encourage you as an exercise to be like, okay, I'm gonna give myself like 12 minutes And I'm going to try to do this one actually, right? I'm going to give myself enough time and I'm going to try to actually do it and then see how you guys do. Or at least, if you don't want to do that, review the answers and see if, you know, the answers make sense and if you can justify them, which you should be able to do at this point. Okay, so we made it through the reading. That leaves us with English, which we have absolutely no time to do right now. But fortunately, we can do it next time. So what we're going to do on Friday, we're going to have a review Kahoot, because I feel like you guys are kind of enjoying those at least. I don't know. I have a good time. I like the instant results. I think it's fun. We're going to do a review Kahoot. We're going to circle back to this test and go over the English. Okay, so be ready with your SAT 9 stuff. And we are going to go over the homework, which I'm about to give you. I don't know if we're going to have time to do anything else, but if we don't, that's okay. So go ahead and flip to the reading packet. I'm going to have you guys do a science one for homework. So which science one, I will have to decide. Let's see. I'm going to give you guys a comparison science passage because I can. So if you go to page 29 in the primer, it says passage number 5. Flip the page and it'll say the case for reviving extinct species. It'll have those worksheets and then it'll have the actual passage. So at this point, I'm going to tell you guys, do the worksheet if you think it'll help you, but I'm making it optional. Pardon? It's a comparison passage, and the first one is the case for reviving extinct species. Yes, it's in the science primer, the 5th passage section. So again, if you go to page 29 of the primer, it comes right after that. Raise your hand or just shout out if you do not have that for some reason. Oh, okay. Sorry, it's not passage 5. It's when you go on to the big passage 5 page and flip right after it. Does that make sense? Okay. So Billy, you have that one? Okay. Yep. Everybody online, we have it. We're good? Danny? Okay, awesome. Kenton, good? Awesome, okay. And we ended right on time. Have a great rest of your class today, guys. Have fun with Joey and the math. And I will see you guys next time. Thank you. Bye. All right. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. Have a good one. Oh, I thought that was the computer. I was like, what? That's spam. Sorry, I know it's lonely. I was surprised Kenton did online today.
Oh yeah.
Enjoy your personal class.
Thank you.
You know, do you at least feel a little bit better about the test now than when you began?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I could have started earlier, maybe.
But I guess it's fine since all the tests been pushed back.
I know, I was gonna say, you got more time now.
It's,
I mean, I would probably be frustrated if I were you, because I would just want to hear it done. I definitely understand that impulse, but you'll get it done. It's just later than you expected.
my friends and I played this game yesterday called Among Us, and it's like cross-platform, so you can play with like phones and PC. But my friend didn't get on because he thought you could only do one or the other.
Why does this run out of batteries?
It's big. It doesn't even turn on.
I turn on like once a week, and every time I turn on, it's like you're out of batteries.
Yeah. Michael has the same charger. I mean, the same speaker.
Cousin Michael has this.
Yeah.
Does he complain about it too?
I don't think so. No. Usually it's fine.
Michael got the good one.
Yep.
Nice. Waterproof.
I should take it swimming sometime.
What are you knocking on? Why does it say I'm in safe driving mode? OMG. I'm not driving. Hello, I'm not driving. Headphones? Speaker. Why is it sideways? Okay, that solves that problem. I think. Okay. Now I need to sum this all. So. Okay. 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 Hello. Hello, 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 hello. Where is everybody? Everybody. Let's talk about stuff. What are we talking about? Who has questions on the homework?
Joey,
Yeah.
can you email me my ACT results later?
Yeah, I need to yell at Julio.
Okay.
Okay. Who else? Who has questions? No questions on the homework?
Can we do the
I
SAT?
have questions.
Wait, you want to do the SAT math? We did that last time.
Oh, then the ACT, which I thought we didn't do.
Oh, I can't do the ACT because half the class didn't do the ACT.
How?
They weren't here this weekend. They were like running around like saving the world or something. We'll do the ACT review whenever we come back, whenever that is. We're gonna finish this math stuff though. This is all the main math stuff. And then
Sure.
on this Friday, I'm gonna do a big old review of everything. And y'all are gonna get tricked by every trick question that I can come up with. That's gonna be the purpose of Friday, to trick you all. Because I think we've basically been through this entire packet, I think. And there's just a couple more things in this packet I want to pick up on today. What was your question on number 19, Kenton?
Page 310, number 3.
Page 310, number 3.
I mean, I'm not 100% sure if my answer is correct. I just want to know what the answer is.
AOD, the answer is 135. But this one's, I've seen this one on the SAT all the time. We talked about tangency last time, right? Who remembers what the definition of tangency is? What's the definition of tangency? 90-degree angle. Thank you, Michael. 90-degree angle. So it touches here, right? So that means if we were to draw a line to the center of the circle, it touches a 90-degree angle, 90-degree angle. And then what's the sum of all the things of a quadrilateral? 360. Yeah, so this is 45. 45 plus 90 plus 90 plus x is equal to 360. Yeah, so that's good. That's how you get 135.
How do I do number 5, Joey?
Number 5. Oh, this one's tricky. Tricky. Hey, they do the thing though. They have the points of tangency, right? A point of tangency, as long as it touches at one point, you can just assume that it's a 90-degree angle, right? Bloop, 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 bloop. 90-degree angle, right? 90-degree angle. Remember I said on the hardest circle questions, it'll help if you draw your radius somewhere, right? So I just drew the radius to all the points of intersection, right? You can draw one over here too. Like that. And guess what? I have this 90-degree. What kind of shape can I make? Triangulo. This is, what kind of triangle then? These two triangles are actually equal to each other. I basically split this in half, right? It's the right triangle. So if this is 6, then this is also 6 from here to here, right? This from here to here, 6, 6. That idea is pretty common. So there is a theorem for this in math, right? If you have a point outside your shape, and if you connect it to the 2 points, these two thingies are going to be equal if it's tangent, right? So if this is 9.5 here, right? Then this is 9.5 here also. And then 12, right? So if this is 12 here, then this is 12 also. So it's because you end up with these two congruent triangles that you can say that this is true. So this idea, you don't need to memorize the theorem. I think it's pretty intuitive, right? If you see this line over here, then these two lines are equal. So I will see occasionally that idea on the ACT and the SAT. I've seen it on both. Using the idea of tangency. Who else?
Number 3 on page 312.
Number 3 on page 312. Whoa. Whoa. That looks super complicated, right? But it says arc length. What do we do with arc length? Arc length is out of how much?
360.
Out of 60.
360. Right?
Oh, arc measure. Arc measure. Not arc length.
2 pi.
2 pi r. 2 pi r. All right, arc length is out of 2 pi r. And then what is out of 360?
Angle.
The central angle. right? The angle in the center. So the idea is part over whole, right? So we can use this proportion a couple of times. It should be equivalent, right? So if we do the proportion for the whole thingy, if we do the whole arc, what do we know? We know the measure of the whole arc is 120 degrees. We know the measure of the whole circle, measure, is 360. And then we can set that up with the arc length, right? What's the total arc length? We just add up all the pieces, right? 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 is 30 out of 2 pi r. So that's our first equation that we can solve by doing the whole circle. If we do the whole circle, then we get that 2 pi r is equal to 90. So then if we solve for r is equal to 90 over 2 pi. Okay, that's the radius of the circle. Or you can just say the circumference of the circle is 90. You can do that one too. If we get the circumference of the circle is 90, we're going to do the whole formula again. Right now, we want the small piece. Out of the small piece, what do we know? We know that the angle is A degrees. We know that the full circle is 360. We know that the arc is 8 now. And then we can either plug in 2 pi r is 90, or we can do plug in r. I think it's just easier to say 2 pi r is equal to 90. So we can do over 90, right? Because 90 is the whole of the circle, and that is the proportion that you want to solve. I wonder where it could come I can't see from there, so I have to see from there. I don't know. It just shut off on my computer. Everybody okay? Questions?
Not on that one.
Not on that one? Okay.
I'm good now. Thanks.
Who else has questiones? Questiones. Nobody?
Number 5 on page 314.
I just catch him monopolizing all the questions.
Is no one else is asking questions?
Yeah, no one else. Y'all need to get your game together, no one else.
How much
Yes.
geometry is on this
Number
test?
5. What theorem are we going to use here? I gave you the piece of info.
Oh, they're supplementary.
There's supplementary. That is a theorem, but I don't know if you need to know that theorem. You just need to know the inscribed angle theorem. Right? We know that this measure from here to here is 70 degrees. This measure from here to here is y. This measure of this is 75, right? And how does the measure of the inscribed angle relate to the intercepted arc?
Half of it.
It's half of the intercepted arc. So the intercepted arc is 150 degrees. That means this one's 80 from here to here. 80. So if this is 70, this is 80, this is 150, right? So what's this remaining arc that's on the outside? Which one?
1, 210.
That one in the bottom left.
There's nothing intercepting. Michael's asking if we could find something based off of this. There's no.
Like next to 75, like on the left. No, inside like the quadrilateral.
This one?
There. It says 80.
No, because this one, look, this one intercepts this one, so we need to know this one. We don't. So there's nothing that's just intercepting this one. But we know that this is 150, right? So this whole thing adds up to 360, so this one's going to be 210. So we can't find each of these individually. We do not know them. But look at this. This one intercepts this one, which is 210. So this one's half of 210. This is 105. So like Kenton said, these two are supplementary. But you don't need to know that theorem necessarily. But you do need to know the inscribed angle theorem. Because my internet's bad. Who ruined my internet? Somebody come fix it.
No, no, say.
Hulu?
Julio.
Julio ruined my internet. Who else? When else? Why else? How else? Which else?
Be number 2 on
When else?
I said what else? Number 2 on 360. What shape we're gonna make?
Probably a triangle.
Probably a triangle. I
Which
guess.
question are we doing? I didn't hear.
Oh, what did you say, Kenton?
Which question are we doing?
Number 2 on page 316. Bloop, bloop. Can anybody draw a perfect circle freehand?
I wish. I've gotten close, but it's too hard.
What if somebody gave you $1 million?
I don't think it'd be possible still.
Yeah. It says OM is 5, right? OM, this is O, this is M. Well, it also says that what? RS is 6. R to S is 6. So guess what? How far is it from R to M or M to S? Half. So 3 and 3, right? Oh my God. So it's a 3, 4, 5 triangle, right? So O is 4, right?
Oh, that's 3.
Michael got tricked. Michael believed me. Who else believes me? Is this 4?
No.
No. Right? Don't just always assume it's a 3, 4, 5 triangle. Right? The hypotenuse must be the longest side. This is one leg, this is another leg. 3 squared plus 5 squared is equal to c squared. 9 plus 25 is equal to c squared. 34 is equal to c squared. Okay, so square root of 34. Oh, that gives us the radius, right? We know the radius. The radius of the circle is rad 34.
You just take out stuff.
And just take out stuff. Well, we don't need to take out anything. We need to put in another radius, right? I did that one set of triangles. I know that ON, it tells me that ON is 4. So I can draw this other radius over here, right? This is also rad 34. Guess what? This is also a right angle. And then from there, what can you do? You do the Pythag one more time. Four squared plus something squared is equal to 34 squared. 4 squared plus x squared is equal to root 34 squared. 16 plus x squared is equal to 34. X squared is equal to 18. X is equal to rad 18. So my answer is rad 18, right? Right? Let's see faces. Am I right? Everybody should be shaking their heads right now. I'm not right. I'm trying to trick you again. Why is it not 3 rad 2? Obviously, because the answer's not there.
Because it's only half.
It's only half, so it's 6 rad 2. ¿Quién más?
Number 2 on page 319.
Number 2 on 319. We talked about the components of the circle equation, right? What are the components?
Centers.
Circle equation goes what? X minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. What's the definition of radius? What is one definition of the radius?
From the center point to the I don't know the edge.
Endpoint, edge of the circle, point on the edge of the circle. Okay, so Michael said it's the center point to the edge of the circle. You're missing the word distance. We need to find the distance from the center point to the edge of the circle. So how do we find the distance between the center point and the edge of the circle? Well, you can draw it, right? Or you can use distance formula. Or we just do -2, 0, right? So we just plot, that's the center of the circle. And it says the end point is 0, comma 3/2. 0, comma 3/2 is like over here. Right? So from there to there. So this would be the radius. And look, when I draw it on the graph, it makes a perfectly right triangle, doesn't it? So I can find the radius. What are the legs of my triangle? Well, my x leg is 2. My y leg is 3/2 or 1.5. Two squared is 4. 1.5 squared is 2.25. So c squared. 6.25 is equal to c squared. So then when I square root both sides, I get that my radius is equal to 2.5. Square root of 6.25 is 2.5. Okay, so that's my radius. 2.5. So then it's A, right? Nobody's shaking their heads. You're supposed to be shaking your heads. Thank you.
No, definitely
No, not A. Right? Because it's A squared plus B squared equals R squared. R squared. So we actually didn't need to square root, right? So it should equal 6.25. And guess what? 25/4 is equal to 6.25. And then what's the circle formula? We put in the center here. The center was 2, 0, so it should be x minus 2 squared plus y minus 0 squared is equal to 25/4.
Joey,
Yes.
do we only have one more chapter to go over? And then we do the review?
Yeah, we'll do one more chapter to cover some things from before, because I don't, did we really review 17 and 18 or no? Not really, right? There's a couple things I want to pick up from 17 and 18 to re-emphasize so that y'all aren't super confused. Or wait, do you all want to be confused and then I just want to think about these here?
There isn't that many polygons on the
Yeah, that's why I don't want to spend too much time on it, but there are some things. Occasionally you will see a polygon. Guess what the most popular polygon y'all will see? Hexagon.
octagon?
I rarely see octagons. You could see an octagon, rarely, but hexagon is the #1 most popular, and then maybe pentagon is #2. I've seen an octagon like once or twice ever. Other questions on the circles before we talk about other shapes? Why are you punching your chair, Michael? Michael's punching. He's angry that everybody deserted him.
See, I would have come today, but I couldn't get a ride home. So
Did your family desert you? Just like
Yeah.
you just, like the circle of desertion.
In Charles,
Huh?
In Charles.
Charles, yeah, Charles decided he wanted to do homework. Like, who does homework? Like, what's that about? Like, I can't do SAT prep, I have to do schoolwork.
yeah, summer homework.
Yeah.
Is SAT prep got canceled?
Probably, just like everybody else. No more questions on section 18 with the circles or 19? 19. No. Moral of the story: circles made up of triangles.
How do you do number 2 on page 319 of the practice test?
319, number 2. Number 2. Guess what shape we're gonna draw?
Triangle.
Oh my God! How'd you guess that?
No.
I think it would have been hexagon. You're right, Michael. Here's my circle. My thing. Here's my other thing. All right, this is called a chord, in case you're curious. So it says it's parallel in diameter. The length of RS is 3/4 the distance of P to Q. Well, what's P to Q called?
Oh, radius.
PQ is not the radius.
PQ is not a radius? Oh, diameter.
Diameter. The longest chord in a circle is called the diameter.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so a chord is a diameter, but no, wait, a diameter is a chord always. But a chord,
I get it now. I don't know why I was confused on this.
right? So it says RS is, right? Remember, RS is 3/4 the length of PQ, 3/4 times PQ, right? But what's the length of PQ? The length of PQ is, like we do R here, right? And R here. So we could say that RS is equal to 3/4 of 2R, right? Because PQ is twice the radius. That's just easier to write that. So what is RS equal to? RS is equal to 3 times 2 is 6. 6/4 is 3/2 R. Right, so whatever this is 2R, so that means this is 3/2R, okay? It also says the distance between the chords, right? The distance between the chord and the diameter is 2 rad 7. So this is 2 rad 7. Where are we gonna draw the triangle? Always from the center of the circle over to the edge of the circle. This is also called R. So I guess here's the tricky part. This whole thing is 3/2 R, right? The whole thing. So I don't I don't want the whole thing. What happens when I split 3/2 in half? What is half of 3/2? Three-quarters. A half of 3/2 is 3/4, right? A half of 3/2 equals 3/4. A half of 3/2 is 3/4. Whoa, complicated. But at least now I have enough to do my Pythagorean theorem. Remember, when you plug things into Pythagorean theorem or any equation, right? You must plug it in parentheses. It's going to be 3/4 R squared plus 2 rad 7 squared is equal to R squared. If you do not plug into parentheses, you'll get it wrong. Because what do you have to do? You have to square everything. So 3/2 squared, oh, this is disgusting. 9/16 R squared. 2 rad 7, we square the 2. 2 squared is 4. Rad 7 is 7 when you square it. So that's plus 4 times 7, right? So that's 28 is equal to R squared. Minus the R squared over, or we can times by 16, whatever you do, whatever you care about. Let's times everything by 16. Maybe people like that one more. Who can do 28 times 16 really quickly without a calculator? Not me. 28 times 16, 448. I times everything by 16, right? At 9R squared plus 448 is equal to 16R squared. Minus the 9/448 is equal to 7R squared. 448 divided by 7. 64. 64 is equal to R squared. Yay. Kind of complicated, right? This is probably beyond the level of the test with all these fractions, but with whole numbers, totally. Right, this is 2R, maybe this is R or something, and you just have to do a triangle using whole number R's, not with fractional R's. Any other questions? Yay, I'm back in. Now I can see everybody without staring over my shoulder. No?
No.
No. Okay.
Wait, Joey.
Yes.
So Julio hasn't graded my test yet? Or
Not
has he?
You just have to put it into the machine, right?
I know, we just have to put it in the machine. He always forgets. I can check it. Did you
Okay.
text the office phone?
Yes,
Or
I
did-
did.
Huh?
I texted the office phone.
Okay, I will look at your text message after class.
Gracias.
Okay. Polygonos. What does poly mean, everybody?
Many
What does gon mean, everybody?
sides.
Sides.
Hey.
Polygon means many sides, right? So I will say, the most common question that I see on the ACT at least, when it comes to polygon, is either how much does the whole thing add up to, or how much does one of the angles add up to. So they'll usually, when they give you a polygon, they'll call it a regular polygon. What does regular mean?
Like equal on all sides.
Equal on all sides, equal on all angles, right? Regular doesn't mean normal, because normal in math means perpendicular. Whoa. Whoa. So everything's equal when they say normal, okay? So here's the trick, because I know a lot of people don't like memorizing formulas, right? If you ever need to calculate the sum of the angles in a polygon, you just pick a side, pick a vertex, it's called a vertex, yeah? And from this vertex, you're gonna draw as many diagonals. Ooh, here's another vocabulary, diagonals as possible. People get thrown off by this. The diagonal is a line that goes from one vertex to a non-adjacent vertex. Whoa, big words, non-adjacent. Adjacent means next to, right? So this is not a diagonal. This is called a side, right? So I'm gonna draw as many non-adjacent vertices. Vertices is the plural of vertex. So what's it called when you have multiple apartment complexes? Complices, right? Matrix, matrices, vertex, vertices, complex, complices. From here, how many triangles did I make? 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? How much is each triangle worth? In degrees. How much is each triangle? What is the measure of each triangle in degrees?
180.
180, 4 times 180. That is the sum of all angles of any polygon. So you just start in a corner, draw as many triangles, okay? Do not do it from the center, okay? Do it from a corner. Because if you draw from the center, you'll end up with extra triangles. Okay?
Like the sum of all polygons is 720.
Hexagons.
Oh,
Because different polygons have different numbers of triangles in them. How do we find each individual angle then? Or what do we do? What do we do? We divide. Divide by how much? How many sides there are, right? Or how many angles there are. So we can figure out the sum of all the angles by taking the number of triangles times it by 180. And then to find each individual angle, we just divide by the number of sides. So then in a hexagon, each angle is 120. Whoa, each angle is 120. Why are hexagons so important on the test? Guess what hexagons are made up of?
3 triangles.
More than 3 triangles.
4 triangles.
More, well, yeah, 4 if we draw from a corner, right? But if we draw this way, we can draw this way. We can draw this way. We can draw this way. What are these?
More triangles.
Huh? What kind of triangles?
Equilateral triangles.
No, not. Michael got it right. Michael said equilateral. Kenton said right. Everybody left it. These are not right triangles. These are wrong triangles. Because what happens? We set these up as 120, right? And look, I cut it this way. I cut the 120 in half. I cut it this way. I cut that 120 in half also. They're all 60. OMG. 60, 60, 60. Those are equilateral triangles. So guess what I've seen on this stupid test before? I've seen a question asking you how to calculate the area of a hexagon. I've seen it. I've seen it.
Can't you just know that the area is 720?
No, that's the sum of the angles. Michael's asking, couldn't you know that the area is 720? We do not know that. So let's do this then. I'm going to give you that the side of this hexagon is 10, okay? And this is a regular hexagon. That means they're all 10. So on the simpler questions, I've just seen like, oh, how long is it from here to here? This is also 10, right? Because it's a regular hexagon. We are going to calculate this. Well, we know the sum of an equilateral triangle, right? Does anybody remember how to calculate the area of an equilateral triangle? Row. I may put this on the quiz on Friday.
We have a quiz.
I said I'm going to give you a test where y'all are going to be tricked by
You said a review.
Review
is not a quiz or a test.
Well, what's the difference between a review and a quiz?
What's the difference between area?
A quiz has a negative connotation for students.
We're going to have a review party, and y'all are going to get tricked. Every time y'all get tricked, I'm going to send an electric shock through the computer, and it'll shock you.
Okay. Sounds
It's
good.
negative reinforcement.
I'll be in person on Friday, so I'll be fine.
In person, I'll have a whip.
What?
I'll have a whip. Every time you're wrong, I'll take the whip.
Okay.
If anybody remembers, the side of an equilateral triangle is s squared rad 3 over 4. Such an easy formula, right? Not really. Okay, so if you don't remember s squared rad 3 over 4, guess what we're going to make out of these equilateral triangles?
Another triangle?
More triangles out of these triangles, right? So we're going to take this triangle and we're going to drop down altitude. If we drop down this altitude, guess what kind of triangle I'm making now?
Right.
What kind of right triangle? Hmm? What kind of
30, 60, 90.
30, 60, 90 triangle, right? So these are all equilateral triangles, right? So this to here is also 10, right? Because this here is 10, this is 10, right? We cut this in half, right? So this was originally 10, then this is 5. So then if you remember your 30, 60, 90, this is 5 rad 3. Or you can do Pythagorean Theorem if you forget, right? So then what? We do the area of one triangle. So the area of one triangle is 1/2. The base is 10, not 5. The base is 10, 1/2 10, times height is 5 rad 3. That's the area of one triangle. So 1/2 times 10 is 5. 5 times 5 is 25. What do we do with this 25 rad 3 to calculate the area of the hexagon? We times it by 6. There are 6 equilateral triangles and a regular hexagon. I have seen this question on test before. Again, if you want to remember this formula, you can do that.
Wait, I'm so dumb. Why can't you do regular like base times 1/2 on this equilateral?
You can, but the height is 5 rad 3.
Oh, you just didn't know it.
Yeah, we didn't know the height yet.
Oh, okay.
That's why. Yeah, usually on the hardest questions, they won't give you the height. Michael was asking, why can't we just do 1/2 base times height? I'm like, yeah, you can. But the height of this is also going to have a rad 3 for an equilateral triangle. Yes. Chess. Are there any other Polygon questions that I think are worth going over? Let's see. Ooh, there's another one. The other thing that people forget all the time is the shape called a rhombus. Who knows what a rhombus is?
It's a diamond.
It is a diamond. A rhombus is a diamond. That is true. But the full definition of rhombus.
It's like two sets of parallel sides.
Yes, Michael said two sets of parallel sides. That is true. What else? I call a rhombus a lazy square. Right? A parallelogram's a lazy rectangle. A rhombus is a lazy square.
Two sets of equal angles. Right?
Two sets of equal angles. The opposite angles are opposite angles are equal. Consecutive angles are supplementary. I don't really think. Well, yeah, you could know that from the transversal rule, right? Because you could do this as the transversal, right? But the biggest one that could help you when you get a rhombus is that if you cut a rhombus along its diagonals, what kind of shape do you end up with? A bunch of triangles. Anybody want to guess what kind of triangles these are?
Isosceles.
They are not isosceles.
Dang.
They're not necessarily 36 to 90. When you cut a rhombus along its diagonals, you end up with 4 congruent triangles, right triangles. Okay, this is only true for a rhombus. Right? With most shapes, these diagonals bisect. I've seen that question before too, right? Diagonals bisect, they cut each other in half. It's true for a square, it's true for a rectangle, it's true for a parallelogram. They cut each other in half. But the rhombus is more special in that it makes right triangles. So sometimes I'll ask you to find the area of a rhombus, and the easiest way to do it is to draw these diagonals. Okay, because then you can just find the area of one of these triangles, right? This is the base of one of these triangles, this is the height, and then just times it by 4. Is a square a rhombus? Is a square a rhombus?
Yes.
Yes, a square is a rhombus. Right, it has 4 equal sides. The opposite angles are equal. Is a rhombus a square?
Not necessarily.
Not
No.
necessarily. Is a square a rectangle? Yes. Is a rectangle a square? Not necessarily. They love those questions too, right? And there's a really cool relationship between rectangles and squares. If you ever get a rectangle question where they're like, which rectangle has the biggest area? Guess what you should be looking for? Yeah, so on the test, here's what they'll do on the SAT or ACT. They'll give you like, here is the perimeter. I have 36 feet of fence, and I want to make a rectangle out of it. I want to plant some veggies. I want to make a garden, right? What dimensions would give me the biggest garden possible that would take up the most space? Right, and then the answers would be like A, 1 by 17, and then there'll be, would be 2 by 8.5, and then 3 would be 4 times 2 point. I think that works. Does B not work?
Wait, just right.
Wait, I can't do math right now. Hold on. 2 times 2 by, oh my god, fence, 18. 16. Oh my god, I can't do math. 4 by. What can I math? All right. Good. Whoa, I'm having a total brain fart right now. I'm starting this question over. I have 24 feet of fence. Excuse me. 1 by 11. I could have 2 by 10. Yeah, okay, there you go. I could have 4 by 8. Okay. Oof, that took a second. Right, you could obviously calculate the areas here if you wanted to. But the rule is that if you want the shape that takes up the most space, you square it as possible. You make it as square as possible. The square is also the shape that takes up the least amount of perimeter, right? A square takes up the most space using the least amount of fence. So efficient. A square is a very efficient shape. So when you all plant your gardens or whatever, make sure you make them as square as possible. Okay? So that's the idea. The square is the most efficient rectangle. Yeah? Finalmente, we will talk about the surface areas and volumes. It's not hard. People freak out when they see surface area. They're like, I don't remember the formula. This is on page what?
Can't you just think of surface area logically? Like you think, oh, it
Yeah.
has that many sides.
Surface area logically, right? You literally just count how many surfaces are on your shape and add them all up. So I've seen on the test where they're just like, oh, here's a triangular prism, right? And then like calculate the surface area. You literally just need to add up all the sides so you can try to visualize, right? I have a triangle on one end. I have a triangle on the other end, right? I have a rectangular on the bottom. I have a rectangle on the side, and I have another rectangle on the side, right? So I'm adding up 5 shapes. So there's no formula per se. There is, but like the formula is just kind of dumb to memorize, right? So just understand that surface area is just you adding up all the sides. So like a cube, right? A cube is just like a die. Die is singular, by the way. If you say, give me 1 dice, nobody can give you 1 dice. You have to roll the die. So you just literally just add up all 6 sides. Cool. So let's, for example, look at number 3 on page 328. Okay, this is a very common SAT and ACT question, both tests. What do they do with this? They start off by giving you a flat piece of cardboard, right? So what do we know about this flat piece of cardboard? We know that it has a height of 2x plus 2. We know that it has a base of 3x. So then if we wanted to calculate the area of the flat piece of cardboard, we can totally do that, right? But of course, they wouldn't make it that easy. They want you to make it 3D. So how do we make it 3D? We take out all these corners and we cut out 3 by 3 little squares, right? Okay, and then they want you to fold it up. So you fold up these little pieces, right? You fold it up. So that it should make sense that when you fold it up, the thing that you're folding up would be 3 inches tall. Right? It'd be 3 inches tall. And I'm trying to make a rectangle here, so it's all 3 inches tall. Now, I guess my question is, if I folded these 2 pieces up, right, how long would this width be over here? 3x minus 6 is what Michael said, which is correct. What's the mistake that everybody makes on a question like this?
6 minus 3x.
That could be a mistake, but I don't think it'd be wrong necessarily. It's still the same number, right? Remember, when you subtract backwards or subtract forwards, you still get the same number. It'll just be negative, which is okay.
3 minus 3x minus 3.
They will do 3x minus 3. Okay? This is the one where they forget. Like when you get picture frames, when you get bookends, you have to remember that there's two pieces to subtract. So 3x minus 3 minus the other 3. So similarly here, right, if we want to find this length, it's not 2x minus 3, it's 2x plus 2 minus 6. So the whole thing is 2x minus 4. Okay, anytime you get picture frames, bookends, something like that, right, where you go all the way around, borders, is where you have to be careful. Now what do they want? They want us to set the volume equal to what? 162. Volume is length times width times height. The height we now know is 3, right? So 162 is equal to 3x minus 6, 2x minus 4. Okay, that's your setup of the equation. Cool. And then you can solve for x using whatever you want. Questions on that one? Another thing that you want to keep track of is they'll throw in the word right, or they'll throw in the word prism when they're giving you these solids questions. Anytime, and they'll throw in the word solid. So a couple things to think of. Anytime you see the word solid on the test, the word solid means 3D. So you can't look at it flat on paper. I think that's what people get confused by, because you know they do this thing of forced perspective. And then they'll be like, oh, this is a solid. Right? So if you look at it just flat on paper, it looks just like a triangle with a lump at the end, right? That's if it's flat. But if it's a solid, what shape is this? Con. It's a con. Or if you want to be fancy, it's called cone. Okay, so this is a solid, right? A solid is 3D. Now, what do they mean when they say right or when they say prism? Anybody know what a right circular prism is? Right circular prism?
Is it maybe like when you like draw like a line through the middle and it has a 90-degree angle?
Kinda, yeah. Michael said you draw a line through the middle and it makes a 90-degree angle, yeah. So circular, when they give you a shape like circular, triangular, pentagular, I think that's called pentagular, pentagonular, hexagonal, there, pentagonal, I found it. Okay, so right means if you draw a line through the centers, right? If you draw lines through the center, it makes a right angle. So that means it's perfectly up and down, right? It's not slanty. You could have slanty ones, but they don't really do slanty ones on this test. Okay, so right means perfectly up and down. Prism means it's not going to change shape. So it's a circular prism. It starts at a circle at the base, and it ends as a circle on the top. Okay. On the SAT, they're really nice, and they give you the formula for this. On the ACT, they require you to know how to calculate the volume of any prism. How do you calculate the volume of any prism? It's literally the area formula. It's just B, except it's a big B. BH. Why is it a big B? Big B is the area of the base. Okay, you just need to find the area of the base and just times it by how tall it is. So on the ACT, I've seen circular prisms, which is also known as a cylinder, right? So they'll say this and flip people out, right? People are like, what the heck? I've never learned about right circular prisms in my life. Yes, you have. They're called cylinders. Okay. I've also seen trapezoidal prisms. They'll say we have a trapezoidal prism. The base shape is this trapezoid, right? And then and then they'll say the height, or they might say the depth, right? So you literally just need to find the area of this trapezoid and times it by how high or how deep it is. It's not a complicated thing, but the wording, right? You just need to get used to the wording. Prism, right, depth, cubic. Cubic's another word that's always telling you that you should find the height of something or find the volume of something. Yeah? Anything beyond where they're asking you for surface area or stuff like that, they'll give you the formula, right? It's either going to be on the front page of the SAT or they're going to give you the formula on the ACT. So let's look at number 3 on page 330. This is one of the most common SAT and ACT questions. No numbers, they just ask you for relationships. It says the figure above shows 2 cylinders. The height of cylinder 1 is twice the height of cylinder 2, and the radius of cylinder 2 is twice the radius of cylinder 1. If the volume of the first cylinder is 45 pi, what is the volume of the second one? Who knows what the wrong answer is? Or at least one of the wrong answers.
D?
No, D is not. You're wrong. With
Oh.
what's the normal student thought process? They're like, oh, one is twice as tall, one is twice as wide. So doesn't that make them the same? But it is not true. It is not true. Why is it not true? So let us start with the volume formula for a right circular prism, right? Pi r squared is the circle part, and then h is the prism part, right? So what's the first one? The first one, they doubled the height, right? In the first one, they doubled the height, so pi r squared. And then whenever I double or triple or half something, I plug that number in parentheses like that. Okay, the second one, what did I do? In the second one, I double the radius, so I do pi 2r squared h. What is the difference in the volumes then? The first one, I can just times it by 2, right? 2 pi r squared h. What about the second one? What's this one equal to? I must square the 2, so it is 4. How do the volumes compare? The second one is twice as big as the first one. So I can do a proportion then if you want to do it, or you can just like, this is twice as big, right? So the smaller one to the second one, 1 to 2, is equal to 45 pi to x. Right, you can see these are all the same, right? So I can kind of just ignore them. And then I can just use the coefficients in front, right? 2 to 4 if you want, if that makes more sense. 2 to 4 is equal to 45 pi over x. Right, the new volume is twice as big. So the correct answer actually is D. They love this one because students fail who put the number inside the parentheses. And then they get the proportions wrong. Chess. I do not think you'll need any of 20-3. Okay, everybody look at 333, number 3. I'm gonna give y'all a couple minutes to figure that one out. It takes everything that we've talked about today and combines them into a difficult question. I'm gonna give you, set a timer for 2 minutes and see how y'all do on that one.
Which one?
333, number 3. I'll put it on the screen too. This one. Michael forgot how to find the area of the hexagon. Bro. Okay. I will be nice and give you all the hint, but remember that is not going to be on the test. If you all want the area of a hexagon, right? We start with the area of an equilateral triangle, which is s squared, right? 3/4, right? So then if we want to find the area of a hexagon, we times that by 6 s squared, right? 3/4, because there's 6 equilateral triangles in it. So that is your hint. I'll give you 2 more minutes. Woo. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Beep, 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 beep. Did anybody get an answer?
Yes.
What'd you get?
9.
9. The answer is 9.
Yeah.
We do. How do we do? So what is it? It's I call this a donut question, right? Where you do the outer minus the inner. So we need to find the volume, which is would be the volume of the cylinder, right, minus the volume of the hexagonal prism. Hexagonal prism. One of the tricky parts is we don't know the radius of the prism. Oh, we do. It says it's 2, right? So it's just what? Pi r squared h, right? So it's pi 2 squared times 4, right? Because the height of the prism is 4. But what's the thing about regular hexagons, right? If this is the radius, then this would also be the radius, right? This is 2. And then what do we say about this? When you split up a regular hexagon, it makes up a bunch of equilateral triangles. So the side length of this prism is also 2. So it's pi 2 squared times 4 minus 6 times 2 squared rad 3 over 4. Oop, I forgot the height. That's the area, right? And then I need to times it by another 4. So the 4's cancel. Yeah? And when you plug it in, I got 8.7 roughly. So this would be like the super duper high end, extreme, crazy question. I don't think you'd ever get a question that super tricky, but different components, right? I've seen different components all the time. The shaded region question, where you have to find the shaded region. I could see that. You could definitely get that where you have the circle minus the hexagon, for sure. Or finding the volume of a hexagonal prism. Yes, that's possible. Finding the area of the hexagon, right? These are all little pieces that you should be able to do if you're in that upper echelon of test scores. But even the basic one, right, of understanding that a hexagon is just 6 equilateral triangles. I've seen an easier question be that simple. And then you just need to calculate the perimeter. Yeah? Who has thoughts or who has questions? Okay. So then one final concept I shall leave you with. Is this very common question. Here's a sphere. I'm not going to give you the formula because you won't need this formula. Okay? Here's another sphere. I'm going to call this 2r. I'm going to call this r. Make sense? So I have 2 spheres. One has a radius. This other one has a radius that's double the radius of this one. How do their volumes compare? A question would be like, what is the ratio of their volumes? Who knows what the ratio of these volumes are?
1 to 4.
You said 4, Kenton. Michael said 4 also. Your 2 votes for 4. Anybody else? Michael's changing his mind. He said it's cubed, so maybe it's 8. Michael,
That's probably 8.
It's actually 1 to 8, right? Because it's cubed. So what's the whole rule then? Okay, so with lengths, right? With lengths, like lengths of a triangle, what can you do? You can just do A to B, right? Whenever you set up a proportion, it's just A to B. So what are some examples of length words that you might see on a word problem? Length words.
This today? Wait, no. I don't know.
Like this side of a shape, right? Anything that you could take a measuring tape and measure it, the side of something. Perimeter is one that people forget about. Perimeter is a type of length, even though it's going in different directions. You can measure it with a piece of measuring tape, right? Any type of distance, right? These 3, if you just want to do a simple proportion, you just do any type of proportion, right? Inches, miles, feet. Okay, then we get to area. So when we do area, it's not going to be a to b anymore, right? The ratio is going to be a squared to b squared. What kind of words indicate area? You have these words for side lengths, right? What about area? What kind of word? Square. Square units, right? That's a big one. Another one that shows up is cover. Right? When you cover something, you're taking up 2 dimensions. Okay? So anytime you see square units, you have to square. So if I double the radius, the perimeter just doubles, right? If I double the dimensions, what happens to the area? It's a double-double.
1 to 4.
1 to 4, right? Double-double. If I do volume, and there's not too many words that are used for volume, right? It's just mostly cubic. It's going to be, what's the ratio? It's going to be a cubed to b cubed. So it's a double-double-double.
It's like total space filled or something.
Space filled, yeah, maybe space filled. Like it's usually water, right? Water or gas, and it's filling, right? Fill space, something like that. They love water questions for volume, right? So double-double-double. So that's something that you want to definitely keep in mind when you're setting this up. So one of the most common trick questions I've seen, I mean, have we gone over this? Is the conversion from square feet to square yards. Oh. How many square feet are in a square yard, anybody?
The squares not like cancel out.
No.
18.
No, not 18. Kent said 18, not 18.
6.
Not 6. How many feet are in a yard?
3.
3. So how many square feet are in a square yard?
It's just double.
Triple. 3. Right, so 1 foot to 1 yard, or 3 feet to 1 yard, right? 9 square feet to 1 square yard. Square. Right? 9 square feet to 1 square yard. How many cubic feet are in a cubic yard? 27. 27 cubic feet are in a cubic yard. How many inches are in a foot? 12. How many square inches are in 1 square foot? 144, right? You can think about it that way. If that doesn't make too much sense to you, you can always do the stoichiometry way too, right? If you want to convert, let's say you have the number 150 square feet, right? 150 square feet, you can write square feet this way, right? Feet. And then you can do the chemistry way too, right? In 3 feet, there's 1 yard, right? One of the feet's cancel, but then you need to do it again. In another yard, there's 3 feet, right? So another of the feet cancel. So it's essentially like you took the number 150 and you divided it actually by the number 9. That makes sense? I'm putting this on because this is another common trick question, and it may or may not show up on your thingy on Friday. Right? I'm going to put in as many of the common trick questions. You'll review it once, and then we'll probably review it again when we get to whatever test date that y'all are taking, right? We'll do a common review of the most common tricks. Yes? Okay, so I'm not gonna give you any particular assignment for Friday. If you wanna do the remaining volume questions in this worksheet, you can. If you wanna do IXL stuff, you can. If you wanna review your test, you can. I don't care. You do whatever you want, but I'm gonna not quiz you on Friday. We'll have a review torture party. Yes? Review torture party.
Sounds good.
Okay. Goodbye.
Joey,
Yeah.
can you give me my scores, please?
I have to go do them.
Do it. Oh, okay. Can you give it to me on Friday then?
No, I'll do it right now, but I just
Okay.
a couple minutes. So I'm going to end the meeting.
Okay. Thanks.
Goodbye.